Hello everyone and welcome to HJW Gaming. With the release of Rise to War 2.0, everyone is currently heavy testing commanders and formations to try and find what the best meta combination is. As a result, I'm here to provide you with 3 evil side commanders that look in early testing to be very, very strong, and I recommend that you try them out in your testing. I really hope you enjoy. So first up, in the southeastern region, we have what appears to be probably the most meta so far of the evil side commanders, which is, surprisingly, Skalhelm. Now, Skalhelm is one of the ring wraiths, and you can see from this diagram in the bottom corner, she is primarily focused on damage dealing. Looking into Skalhelm's skill build, she has a couple of skills that are very, very valuable. Now, all of the ring wraiths currently have the ring wraith skill, which is very, very valuable. If you maximise this to 10 skill points, you can get 400% focus damage dealt for the first 2 rounds upon taking action each round. So it basically means that you're going to be dealing 400% damage for the first 2 rounds. On top of that, when you get it to level 5, you also deal 200% poison damage to the target after that previous effect ends. So you do the 400% focus and then you'll deal 200% poison damage. And then when maximised, you also get some good crowd control with a 30% chance to inflict a stun on the target during those first 2 rounds. The second skill which is of value to us is the Executioner skill tree. Now again, when maximised, it means that every round you deal 75% poison damage to 3 enemy formations. So essentially you're dealing 225% damage every single round, which is a pretty crazy high amount of poison damage. In addition, from round 5 onwards, once you've allocated up to 5 points into this, you can also deal the same amount of focus damage. So you'll be dealing 450% every single round after round 5. And then when maximised, you can also gain +5 focus, which all of these skills will be scaling with, so your bonus focus will help deal additional damage. Now again, Skalhelm, you can also keep pushing up her respect level and keep getting more output after you've maximised those 2 skills, as both her skills, Dark Ranger for example, which deals 45% focus damage per skill point to 1 to 3 random formations, or also Lord of Wolves, they're all high commander damage skills, so continuing to put respect into her will continue to buff her damage more and more. So as a damage commander, she appears to have really top tier skills. However, the one thing that does make Skalhelm particularly great and why she's so much better than all the others is actually her unique item. Now the Stalkers Bow, unlike most other unique items for the commanders, has not seen the heavy nerf. For example, Dane's helm received quite a heavy nerf to reduce the commander damage, however the Stalker's Bow has not, which makes it probably one of the top tier unique items available in the game. So if you can push Skalhelm's respect very high to get lots of skill points and also the unique item, you will do an enormous amount of damage. The reason for that is its refined effect. If you fully refine the Stalker's Bow, you deal 1500% poison damage on the first round against one enemy. And it prioritises enemy ranged units, and they receive +6% poison damage, which lasts till the end of combat. So all of those poisons in her skills, poison damage, will deal an additional 6%, which is great, but the main thing you're looking for is that 1500% damage nuke, which when it hits in the first round is just going to wipe one of the enemy's armies completely. It's a huge amount of damage and probably the strongest unique if you can get it fully strengthened and refined, or at least one of the strongest. So therefore I definitely recommend trying to find a place for Skalhelm in your formation army. If you're looking for a good commander to pair with Skalhelm and kind of increase her effectiveness, I would recommend looking towards Mouth of Sauron. The reason for that is he has some fantastic skills that do synergise really well with that damage nuke coming from Skalhelm. The primary one of that is his Harbinger of Darkness skill. Now, what this does is for the first 2 rounds, the attack of 3 formations on both sides, so to your enemy and yourself, the attack gets reduced by 2.5 for every single point you put into this, so up to 25. Now, the reason this synergizes really well with Skalhelm is that her damage is being dealt through poison and focus, so therefore it's using the focus stat, not the attack stat. So you're dropping the damage being dealt by your opponent's attacks. So if you're coming up against other damage dealers, for example, like other meta ones, say Dane Ironfoot, you're dropping his damage down, but Skalhelm's will be unaffected. So therefore this is a fantastic pairing to put with Skalhelm. For the second Evil Side commander that I would recommend giving a test, we are again going to the southeastern region, and we are going to look into Sestaro. If we look at his distribution again, we can see he's primarily pushed towards the damage stat, which is not surprising with the way that damage commanders appear to be in the meta, just as we expected from PBE. However, he does also have some good support skills, though it's unlikely we're going to look to use those. If we look into his stats, he's pretty similar to Skalhelm in his distribution, though he does have significantly higher command in particular. So his damage is 21 to 23, HP 1094, command of 43, and he has a very low attack stat of only 7, with 17 defense. However, he does have a high focus of 24, which will very much come in useful later on, as you'll see, and he has 12 speed. So, if we look into his skills, again, we're going to be primarily focusing on that Ring Wraith skill again. I've already run this through with Skalhelm, so I'm not going to run through it again, but this is a very, very powerful skill, so we'll be looking to utilise that first up. His second very powerful skill comes in his Respect 5 skill tree, which is Lord of the West. Now what this does is this deals 15% focus damage to 2 enemy formations once every single round. Obviously when maximised, this is 150%. In addition, it stops your opponent from initiating their normal attacks when hit by this skill. So it massively reduces the enemy damage as well as inflicting good focus damage. But on top of that, you also have a 20% chance to deal the same amount of focus damage once again. So if that triggers, with a 20% chance across 10 rounds, you can expect that normally on average to affect twice, but you'll get an additional, on average, 300% focus damage from that. And then on top of that, when you get it to 10 skill points, you will deal an additional 3% focus damage. So all of those will be buffed as a result. Once you've got both those skill trees maximised, if you have skill points available, I'd recommend going into the Spellseeker skill, which deals 20% focus damage to 2 enemy formations every second round. So you can see here it has that 1 round cooldown. The more skill points you can get into this, the better, as if you can get this to Respect 5, obviously pushing up Sestaro's focus will really push up that damage coming from the other focus skills. And if you can get it to 10, you get, again, additional focus. So you just get more and more focus damage coming from Sestaro. When you bear in mind that his stats have a very good focus, it means that he's capable of dealing a lot of damage as all these skills scale with his focus stat. If we take a look at his unique relic, again, it's quite a strong relic. Not as good as Skalhelm's, unfortunately, but still very, very strong. You can see all the stats there, but primarily, again, what we're focusing on is the capability of the kind of bonus effect on the unique. So in this case, you have a 40% chance for focus damage dealt to go up by 5% when dealing focus damage. And that can stack 5 times. So if you stack that up and you're dealing plus 25% focus damage with all of those round-on-round focus damage dealing skills, you will get a huge amount of damage. I wouldn't recommend pushing this to max refine if you have a choice between Skalhelm or Sestaro, but it's a very, very good relic nonetheless and synergizes very well with his skills, basically. So primarily, the thing to focus on with Sestaro is that he's not like Skalhelm in the sense that he's an early round nuke, but over the duration of a battle, he will deal just consistently high amounts of focus damage. So therefore, you want to pair him with gear as such that will boost that focus damage as much as possible. From early season testing, we have seen some fantastically high numbers from him. Not quite Dane Ironfoot numbers, 180, 200k damage, but I've seen consistently 100 plus k coming from Sestaro, so he can be a very, very effective commander. Now, a good possible pairing with Sestaro, I would recommend Sauron. Now, the reason for this is contained in Sauron's Respect 3 skill tree, Gorthar. If you can maximise this to 10 points, you make the opponent's armies receive plus 15% focus damage for 2 rounds. So again, you're buffing that damage that Sestaro is dealing, as well as the damage that Sauron himself would be dealing through his focus. So it's a very, very useful skill. And on top of that, you also have the Deceiver tree, which can again pair well as it can increase that damage received by the opponent's formation. Now for the last evil side commander I recommend trying, I wanted to look at Saruman. Now Saruman I think can be very, very strong, as again he does have good focus dealing commander damage skills. Unfortunately, with the way the meta is, as we expected from PvE, commander damage is the meta, and I think Saruman can really come strong and shine through in this regard. If we look at his skills, we're not going to be focused on the Ring Wraith skill this time, as of course Saruman doesn't have that skill, but we are going to once again look at his Respect 3 skill, which is Voice of Saruman. Now, once 10 points are put into this, it means that 300% focus damage will be dealt to one enemy formation every second round because of that 1 round cooldown. But on top of that, if you maximise it, you also get possibly one of the best crowd control skills that remain in Rise to War, which is a 50% chance to inflict madness on the target after the target receives the damage, which will then last for 1 round. Of course, when you think about it, 50% chance to inflict madness, and then even when they've got that madness on them for 1 round, it's only a 50-50 as to whether they attack their own army. So realistically, it's about 25%, but this still remains one of the best crowd control skills around, when most other crowd control skills have been nerfed pretty heavily. And lastly, when 10 skill points are put in, the damage received by the opponent when inflicted with madness can go up by 5%, so you get a little bit more of a damage buff. But the primary reason we choose this skill is we just want that additional focus damage being dealt every second round. We then pair this with Of Many Colours, which again is focus damage dealing skill. So you can deal up to 380% focus damage every third round as a result of that 2 round cooldown. In addition, you can also deal the same amount of poison damage again, and then you can also deal the same amount of burn damage again when maximised. So every third round you'll be dealing 380% elemental damage 3 times, which is a huge amount of burst damage every third round. It's a shame this isn't a rush skill, so of course that damage will not affect until the third round. But overall, I think he looks pretty fantastic with the way his focus damage skills come in. And his relic reinforces that as well, if you're able to get him to Respect 10. Again, it's not as strong as Scalehelm's, but it's still very, very strong. And it means that every time the commander inflicts a normal attack, it inflicts an additional 120% focus damage. So you get a huge damage buff again, which massively pushes up the strength of Saruman. Pairing wise, I'm not going to go through it again, but again, Sauron would be the best pairing for this. Now, of course, I haven't mentioned really much about the gear that I'd recommend on each of these commanders or the troops that synergize with them either. For now, that's still kind of going through testing. I just recommend using troops that synergize best with the various different gears that you have, and using gear that synergizes again with the commander's skills. So, for example, you want to increase commanders' damage dealt from their skills and also push up their focus to try and increase the damage on all 3 of those commanders. So last up, for a full recommended army, you could potentially synergize these guys together, as all of them have very similar skill traits, though effective in different rounds. You could get quite a good consistent pairing of, say, Scalehelm and that early round burst, and Sestaro's sustained damage, and then pair those up, for example, with Sauron and Mouth of Sauron, as that focus damage buff from Sauron and also the attack decrease from Mouth of Sauron will synergize well with both of those commanders. Additionally, you could swap one of those out if you wanted more commander damage with Saruman. So I recommend you guys giving it a try, and also of course mixing with other commanders as well, as there'll be many other commanders on both good and evil side that will synergize well with those. But from early testing, these 3 appear to be some of the best individual commanders to include within your formation. Anyway, I really hope you found this information useful. If you have, smash a like, and if you hit subscribe, you'll see more of my 2.0 videos coming out in the future. And with that, I've been HJW Gaming, and I really hope to see you on the next one.